Welcome and thank you for clicking on my video. Happy Saturday. I hope you're having a good weekend. And today we are going to be talking about how a crash is very highly probable over the next 30 days. And we're going to show you utilities and how that can actually form for us. And we're seeing it form right in front of us. And it really helped us out this week. And that's how we were able to find, before this even happened, that there was going to be some kind of turn down in the market, and we get that red day. So we're going to point out that signal right away. We're not going to waste your time. And then we're going to get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, AMD, and Meta going forward, showing you why volatility can creep up. And since volatility is creeping up, I just wanted to mention that the course is going to be 50% off. If you're new here, I don't encourage you to just take the course willy-nilly. It will be good for you, but I want you to make sure that you enjoy this style. So if you want to see stocks like I do, watch this video, see how I see things, see how I read into indicators, and see if you want to take that course over the weekend. It is a great time to take that. And it's only $100 for the next 7 days. That's right. We're going to keep it till the end of the month and see if we want to extend it. But let's get into that crash signal right away so I don't waste any of your time and you can go back to having a great weekend. Let's get into it. All right, so what really tipped us off that there was going to be some weakness on this day right here? On Thursday, we were live and this was up in this area and we said this has a high probability to fade. NVIDIA earnings is going to be good. It's going to end up fading eventually. And it started to fade right away, right? It started to fade right away on NVIDIA earnings. So what is the overall reason for this and why did Apple see so much weakness? And we called that out on Patreon in our weekly update video. What was it? It's utilities, okay? So utilities, if you look back at utilities, every single time that we are going to go towards a major top, we see a major run-up, okay? And I'm going to point out some times in the past where we did see those signals at major points. Okay, so if I just zoom out for a little bit and I go all the way back, we can go and start at 2020. And I wanted to just prove this to you guys because as you can see right now, what is happening with utilities? Well, we're seeing a major run up. So let's look at the last time we had a major run up and you're going to see we had this run up from a bottom here of about 63.79 and we went up about 11%. So a lot of the time these run ups will be from about 8% to 12%. And I can tell you right now, we're in an even bigger run up as of right now. Okay, so what's the signal that we want to pay attention to? Well, XLU, it actually keeps pretty in line with the market. It's actually a very quick signal. So when we do see these divergences pop up, a lot of the time you can see weakness when this crosses over on the MACD like we did here February 7th, 2020. And then you'll notice that lately we've been seeing one more push higher, giving us some kind of divergence. And that's why we really do have the potential to create this signal fully and have a potential crash in the next 30 days. Okay, so I'm expecting some kind of market top in the next 30 days. But on this channel, we do trade like water, meaning I will completely change this if this doesn't happen, right? We will completely change our thinking, and that's perfectly fine. Being a good trader is what we call trading like water. It means that we are open to multiple scenarios. And this one has a high probability of forming right now. And I want you to be aware of it. But you're noticing here, once we get a red impression on the histogram on February 21st, with that divergence, we saw a major drop off in 2020. And we're going to point this area out on the SPY when we get back to it. So keep this in mind. This actually called a top. Right here on February 21st, we get a top on a Friday. We see that red impression, and then you'll notice that, boom, we see that skyrocket down. Okay, we see that plummet down with the 2020 crash, and that's something to pay attention to there. So that actually caught that crash. Now, if we scroll over just a little bit here, and we can go find out where we topped out back in 2022, what do we notice happened? Well, we found a bottom after some kind of bottom over here for utilities. Well, we found a higher low right around that 200, okay? And then what did we do? We saw a run up of about what? Well, 8 to 12%. We actually ran up by 9%. And what did we create? We created a divergence again. Do you notice how I marked off the divergence here? So every single time that we do create this type of signal, the market sees weakness, and that's how we saw the initial weakness coming. And now we expect we are going to create some kind of divergence at this high. Now, we could just not create that divergence. Sometimes it does just drop down right away, but the last 3 times we've seen the signal, it has proven to be some kind of drawdown after getting a divergence. So that's what we're paying attention to and why it could take a little bit of time, and maybe it's in the next 30 days. So we're paying attention to this because it's very important. You notice that we do have a MACD divergence and RSI divergence at the same time. That's what we really pay attention to on this channel. And then it works the other way as well. So as we see these major drop-offs, we had that bear market, and then we go into the bottom here back in October 4th. Okay, we talked about a bottom in October 4th, and we wanted to mention this for the SPY. What happened? Well, utilities was able to base out, okay? And what happened here was utilities based out first, and then the SPY actually dropped down with utilities, but utilities remained a little bit better and diverged from the market, making a lower low, giving you a divergence on the SPY, which we called out and called that bottom back here in October 2023. So we've done very, very well with this market, and I highly suggest you start to pay attention to utilities, because where are we at right now? Well, we're in a run-up. So is that run-up 8 to 12%? Let's go find out. Okay, look at this. It is 16%. 16%. So this thing is screaming, hey, I'm screaming to higher levels. If I create this signal, you better watch out, because I can start to crash from this level. Okay, so right now, what are we noticing? We crossed down on the MACD. This is when utilities was crashing down while the market was starting to fade that move. And I said, yep, this is probably going to fade pretty quickly, because it follows this signal pretty quickly. This is one of the signals that happens, and then the SPY can only take a couple of days to catch up to it. And right away, you know, these happened at the same time, but the SPY has not crossed over. So what we're expecting here, if it's going to hold true to the last couple times that this has happened, well, then we're going to see this draw down. Right now, it already has red impression. So what if that just bounces right back up right now and creates that divergence? It can be pretty quick, and we could actually see a top in early June. So we're paying attention to the next 30 days. It looks like this crash signal could be there. If you want to go back over to the SPY, and we just go look at when those points were made for XLU, the utilities, well, look at the top, okay? The top back in 2022, we already showed you that. That was the second one that we actually marked off. If we want to go all the way back to 2020, then we can go all the way down to here and just notice that there was a divergence in the price action as well. So it followed utilities, it ran up, it made the divergence here, and you're noticing that it's downward on the MACD and it is downward on the RSI at the same time. And that is something to really pay attention to. It's something that we talk about in the course. When things are at the same time, it leads to trend reversals. And you'll notice here, what did we say? February 21st is when that crossed over. This time it happened on the same day, and we gapped down and we just never came back. That thing just started to crash. So utilities is proving to be something to pay attention to. Let's scroll down the line here with the SPY going all the way up to 2022, and you'll notice this is where that signal actually was proven on the utilities. And what do we notice? It was just a day or two later that we actually get, well, one, we get a down bar, and then this bar right here confirming it on the MACD, we get a little bounce, and then that thing is ripped away. Utilities calling it out one more time here for 2022. So why are we paying attention to it now? Well, because we just saw that huge run up in utilities. We're seeing a drop off, and the SPY is following that drop off a little bit here. Okay, so what do we notice? It has not crossed over on this MACD, so you do not have to create a divergence at the same time. I do like them at the same time, so we will be paying attention. If this is going to just be some kind of pullback, we will change our thinking. We trade like water, and it will really help you out as a trader to not get overly bearish, overly bullish. You just want to pay attention to what the signals are telling you in front of you, right? If the signals remain bearish or remain bullish, then you remain bullish, you remain bearish, and you're open to these signals changing at any time and trading like water. Okay, it will really help you out. It will help you not get fooled by the market maker algorithms. That was really the big hint of why this was happening, was XLU, and the fact that at this level, calls got too expensive. And that's exactly what the algorithm wants to do. It wants to rip it away right when calls get expensive. It will switch to the short side with those algorithms, screwing over retail traders. So we're also updating the course this weekend, putting out that video that says when you take a trade based on these signals, how do you not get screwed? How do you know to get out of a trade? We're adding that in this weekend. So great weekend, and it's only $100. It's 50% off, and that's going to be just for the next 7 days. So what are we paying attention to here? Well, we've seen a huge run up while XLU has seen a run up, and XLU has actually crossed on the MACD, and the SPY hasn't done that yet. So we could actually see a further pullback, and then maybe sometime we get some kind of basing out and go up and make a higher high in mid-June. We actually see that ripped away. So really in the next 30 days, this is what I think will play out. But if it plays out a little bit differently, I will be notifying you every day. We go live every single morning of the week, and I look forward to going live with you guys, showing you these signals. Now, what what can we, besides utilities, what can we see from up here? If we did cross over on this MACD, we would have another point of divergence. We got a lot of wonky divergences in this overall manipulated squeeze, NVIDIA's manipulated squeeze, and now we're seeing short sellers who could get caught, and that is something that can crash the market, because the last time that this happened, the big moment was, I believe it was like 1902. There were some kind of big short sellers that got caught short selling some railroad company. And at that moment, people had to liquidate. They had to take money out of the stock market in order to pay for the shorts that they did not even own shares of, right? They did not even own shares to short sell. So that's happening again right now. It happened back with GameStop in the past, and the market did suffer. The Dow went down like 200 or 250 points in one day because they have to liquidate their assets to pay to buy up those shares so that they don't get caught in any illegal activity. So that could happen again right now with AMC and GME, and that's why we're paying attention to these signals at this moment. So what are we noticing? Hey, another point of divergence is forming right now. This is a little bit lower on the RSI between a lot of points up here. So I still think we have a good shot to create some kind of divergence here before we actually crash down. And I'm going to follow XLU and post that with you guys, every single week on Patreon and on YouTube to keep you notified. Now, the Qs are why I think we're going to create some kind of divergence. This has really screamed higher, and we're not necessarily seeing the best divergences anymore. Okay, we're not necessarily seeing divergences between a lot of these levels up here. So I think we have a good shot to create one this month of June, and then we see some kind of top in June. I think that's very possible. I actually think it's the most probable thing right now because we're following XLU very closely. So if XLU creates that divergence, then you can say, yeah, the probability of a crash is very high, and I want you to be very aware of that. Everyone's telling you that it's rainbows and sunshine. It's not. We are in a huge bubble across many different assets, and one of those is even being NVIDIA, and I think that's going to be ripped away, and people are going to be surprised at how much NVIDIA goes down over the next couple of years. Not saying it's a bad company or anything like that. They're posting good earnings again, but I think that it is going to have some insider selling. It already does, and we're going to see this thing ripped away. But what are we noticing here? No real big divergences. I mean, if you wanted to create one, it would be with this point right here, and you do have it. But maybe we want to pay attention to a different signal for the Qs just to get a different take. So on the daily scale, you can see this come down, maybe create a double top, or even go a little bit higher. Just pay attention if a divergence forms here. That most likely is going to be a major top in the next 30 days. But why do we think that some kind of crash is going to happen? If you pull out to a monthly scale, what is happening on the monthly scale as of right now? And this is on the SPY. I just wanted to show you guys it on the Qs so I don't waste your time looking at multiple charts that look exactly the same. Okay, the Qs running up to higher levels, but we notice this, as we go higher, our indicator here showing a divergence forming. If that does see some weakness, if we get that signal with XLU in the next month or so, well, that is going to be bad news, because when you do get a divergence, this is actually pretty close to going negative, okay? And I want to zoom out and show you guys how the MACD has not been negative for the Qs in a long time. The last time the MACD was negative for the Qs was way back here in 2000 with that dot-com bubble. Okay, the dot-com bubble bursted, and that actually was able to go negative. And what do you notice? Well, when you are negative, you see some very crazy price action to the downside. So I believe a crash is coming. I still think it'll be in the form of a bear market. I don't think it will be one shot like back in 2000. I think we're going to see some bumps in the road. So you need some skills in order to trade, and those skills would be able to be achieved with the course, and that's why I put it on a sale, because I think volatility is going to scream higher soon. And we're going to go over volatility in this as well, because it's showing similar signals. It's showing crash signals as well. Okay, so what do we pay attention to on the monthly here? I just wanted to show you, you have the divergence on the MACD, you have the divergence on the RSI down here at the same time. Now, this hasn't proven yet, so we need that to cross over, and then that will be a signal of, hey, maybe I don't want to hold stocks for a while. Okay? You do not want to be caught up in something like this, because when we go through a time where the monthly MACD is able to actually go negative, the trends here, the indicators here are actually able to go negative. Well, what happens? We actually come down in 2000, and we're not able to really go back to positive until 2004. So you can see years of downside. And if you notice here, the peak of 2000, how long did it take us to get back to that point? Okay, we're looking all the way over here. All right, look right here. It took us 17 years to get back to this high, and I do not want you guys to be caught up in this. You need to pay attention to these macro things right now. We still trade the shorter time frames, but if you were really being a diligent investor, you would say this is just a point where I say, hey, I'm not going to take anything here. I think that major lower prices are going to come, and maybe we end up down towards a 250. Maybe we end up down towards a 150, right? So we're paying attention because these signals do lead to crashes in the overall market, and I want you to be aware of that. Couple stocks that warned us about this weakness early on. We pointed out Apple. Back in the day, we actually said Apple's going to have a huge run up right here. All right, this was a signal. This is in the course on the daily, in the 2 hour, and the 30-minute. We go over this very diligently because this is a very, very good signal that we are going to see some kind of squeeze. And this is your golden setup. So you will learn the golden setup where you can take a month out position and make a ton of money on a move when you see that setup. You can make literally like 5x your money on a move like this very quickly, and you don't even have to hold until the high. You really just have to pretty much play it until this bounce up right here, and then you're out to top Bollinger, and you'll make plenty in that move. So we'll teach you guys how to find those in the course. But Apple was warning us about some kind of weakness early on, and this is what we were talking about at the time. Some kind of double top for Apple did form. We saw that cross down, and we were mentioning, hey, watch out if this crosses down. We see a big gap down, a bounce back up, and then we finally do cross, confirming that move, and boom, we're able to break through. What are we getting right now? A retest, okay? You're still right by negative territory. So if that weakness does come in June, I am expecting some big weakness for Apple. I think Apple could end up back down towards $124. And if we're going to see some kind of bigger crash, then Apple could head down all the way down to the 2020 lows of $53. So this is a time as an investor, you'd look at this and say, hey, there is a high probability that I could buy Apple in the next couple of years at the price point of $53, and it's sitting at $190. It's sitting at 190, so that is what I would pay attention to right now. Apple screamed weakness. It was the one, it leads the market a lot of the time. It led the market back here, and it's leading the market down as of right now, getting a bounce back up to our sell zone, up for a retest, and we're going to be talking about Apple a lot as we move forward. But I would pay attention if this weekly starts to roll over into negative territory. That's going to be a big deal. And we are going to go over the shorter time frames on Sunday, okay? So join us back on Sunday. Make sure you're subscribed, have those notifications on so that we can show you guys some weekly expected moves priced in from the options. It really helps you out as a trader, and that is in the course as well. Another one that told us about some weakness was Tesla. And Tesla, the reason we were talking about weakness right here back in December, right? Back in December, this is when actually the insiders started to sell. You can see that in the dollar. So the insiders were selling in this area. This is the exact point right here where the insiders started to say, hey, we're selling out of most of our positions. And now they're making in the SPY and the Qs, the retail traders are starting to hold the bag. And I don't even think they realize it. So you are going to be someone who is aware of it as of right now. Really seriously pay attention to it. Do not let them, give you the emotional reaction of, I am sick of trying to short NVIDIA. I am sick of trying to short the stock market. Everything always goes up, so I'm just going to buy calls. That is the exact moment when the algorithm will flip on you and they're going to rug pull you. Okay, I want you to be very aware of that going forward. That is exactly the emotional reaction they get. And a lot of people say, keep emotion out of trading. I actually disagree. I think emotion is a very, very good thing. I would say if you are in control of your emotions. Emotion can cause a lot of good things. I used to play college soccer, and I was an emotional player who made a lot of mistakes. And all my coach said was, you have a ton of energy because you are a very emotional player. I want you to stop and think for a second when you feel yourself getting emotional and think how you can put that towards something positive. And I ended up becoming I almost played for the New York Red Bulls, right? Before my 2 shoulder dislocations, I actually almost played for the New York Red Bulls. They were coming to scout me. Like, it really turned it around. And I think we can take that into trading as well. Emotion is not bad. It is something that can give you a lot of energy, but I want you to put that energy into your good habits. I want you to put that energy into, I am going to focus on the signals that I am seeing here and use that to make some money, use that to put myself in a better spot. And what did we notice back here? Right on this bar right here, we said Tesla is most likely going to break through this big structure. Why did we say that? Because it's very, very close to the center line. It's about to go into a weekly negative trend, and that is exactly what it is right now. It is a weekly negative trend, and that is starting to get some kind of bounce up. We can still head up towards our little sell zone up here. That makes total sense, but in the meantime, we have to say, until this thing can actually go positive pretty strong, anytime that rolls over, and I think it's going to roll over again in June because of XLU, well, we can see some kind of bounce up and then see that thing ripped away. And I think that is coming right around the corner. But don't say, if you need to take all your emotions out of it and that works for you, that's great. Me, I get emotional and then I focus up and I look at how I can really be diligent, create the good habits, and then say, hey, how am I going to punch back? How am I going to punch back? I'm going to punch back by doing things the right way, analyzing as much as I can and paying attention to how I can get screwed. And that will really help me out in a market like this. But Tesla looks like, hey, it's crossing up. It can cross up and go a little bit higher. That's perfectly fine. We're going to go into the shorter time frames and give you those weekly ranges on Patreon for Tesla this Sunday. Amazon on a weekly scale, this is turning down, and you see how we have potential to create the divergence on the MACD and RSI at the same time, because Amazon actually looks like it's going to get a run up here. Please come back for Amazon, because it looks like we could get some kind of run up for Amazon according to the signals, and this would create some kind of weekly divergence. We already have daily divergence here that's already been playing out, and what are we noticing? We were able to hold up at 166.12 once. We marked off that location, and now we're seeing that daily divergence pull us back down, but we're seeing a 2-hour that could roll up. So very important to tune in if you're trying to trade Amazon, if you want to come back on Sunday, because there's some good signals here for a bounce. But as of right now, we have to pay attention to XLU and see if we need to go a little bit deeper in Amazon. But as of right now, what do we notice about the weekly scale here? If we do get some weakness, that would be good, because the MACD could get lower, and then maybe we get that bounce up, and sometime in June, just make it quick, sometime in June, we get some kind of little divergence up here. Okay, I think that would be very, very good for Amazon, but we can just see how much this has run up. You're up at the all-time high. If I pull up a monthly chart, what are you going to see? Well, you're going to see a divergence forming, okay? So now you're seeing it in the individual stocks as well. It's in most of the individual stocks, especially the Mag 7. Especially the Mag 7, which tells you the insiders are about to just rug pull the market, and you will be holding the bag. And I highly encourage you to pay attention to this. You could literally sell in May and go away, and then come back in 2 years, and you'll probably be able to buy Apple and things like this for $50 instead of $180. I just wanted to point that out to you. If this monthly actually does turn down and go negative, it is going to be a very, very bad sign for the overall stock market and for individual stocks. Now, the outlier is NVIDIA, and this thing is just manipulated to the upside. It really is. It's just the big money holding this, and the small guys trying to short it all the time is why this just keeps going higher. The algorithm always points out that, hey, we could just cause this to go higher. Calls are cheap a lot of the time because people try to short this multiple times. So what are we noticing on the weekly, though? The reason that I think we're going to see this fade is because, well, one, in the shorter time frames, this looks like the strongest bar ever on a weekly scale, and you have like a little buy signal here, right? We don't pay attention to that on the course, right? We have our own reasons to take a trade, and we believe in 3 to 5 reasons to take a trade, and we literally tell you those exact reasons to take a trade, and you're going to love that portion. A lot of people comment about that portion to me in the course. They'll email me and be like, I love this section because I always, struggled with what exact things I should look for. And I literally tell you exactly what I look for and what's made me really successful. And I think that the emails I've been getting, that's why I really want to push the core. I think it's very, very helpful, and volatility is about to scale up, and that could be a much harder market to trade in. You can't just buy calls and everything goes up. So right now, what are we noticing? Well, I want to show you the shorter time frames on Sunday, because this looks like the strongest bar ever, but this looks like algorithmic manipulation. It looks like just people were trying to short it, and it just trailed up and up, and that selling never came in. So that is something to pay attention to, and it looks like a little bit manipulated. What are we seeing right now? Weekly divergence here actually forming. So even if this goes a tiny bit higher, we're going to have those weekly ranges for you on Patreon. And if that goes a little bit higher, I suspect that's the moment it's actually going to fade, when it hits that weekly expected move next week. Because I think this is going to dip down and then maybe see another little run up and then start to crash down. That's what I really think is going to happen. If it happens a little bit quicker, I will be notifying you guys about it. We'll always be paying attention to the signals, because if we look on the daily scale, what do we notice here? A very steep divergence forming. Okay, very steep divergence forming, and it's getting close to negative territory. Okay, so this is really when you want to pay attention to a stock when it has a divergence, is when it's closer to negative territory, closer to this center line down here. That means it can go negative, and when it does go negative, you will see dramatic downside because you're in a negative trend. This thing has been in a positive trend ever since what? January of 2023, and since then we've seen a run up of, what is this? From the low here, we've seen a run up of 700% and no halts in this stock. Very interesting. That's because the insiders are the ones in this and the market makers are the ones in this. The algorithms are controlling this, and that's why you're never going to see a halt on NVIDIA. The halts are made to screw over the retail trader, not necessarily screw over NVIDIA or anything that the big guys are in. And you can say, you know, hey, yeah, halts happen because of volatility. They do, but it's funny that they happen in selected stocks. They really happen more times in selected stocks. So you know that it is manipulated and the market is rigged against you. And that's why you have to really be trading like water out there. All right. So what do we notice though? When we do go negative, what happens? Okay. Let's look way back when we were actually able to go negative on a daily scale. What actually starts to happen from this high up here? Okay. We go negative right around this area right here. All right, and we notice that the price action starts to head way down. So if we remain in a negative trend, what ends up happening? Well, we see a drop all the way down by 62%. So you're talking about potentially well, if you want to take that into consideration, let's just say a 62% drop in NVIDIA. What would that look like as of right now from this high up level as the insider sentiment is going way down in this? Let's look for a 62% drop, $400. Okay, so I'm telling you, this has a split in it and all that good stuff, and people are going to buy into that and think that, oh, if I get a 10-to-1 split, now NVIDIA is only worth $106 and it can go back up to $1,000. This thing has more money in it now than even the whole country of Canada. And if it went down, if it did the split and went back up to $1,000, it might have more money in it than all of America's economy. Okay, it might have a bigger GDP than America at that point. So pay attention to this. This is something you have to see. If you see this daily roll over, I would be very worried. But remember, XLU still might make that signal. So we may see some kind of drop down, get some kind of double top or even higher high, and then that is ripped away because they are trying to fake you out in any way possible. And once you see volatility scale up, that's when they fake you out the most. They make bulls and bears lose money as retail traders, and that's why you need to take some courses. And the thing about the course is it's just going to tell you how to trade like water and teach you good habits, and I think that's the best thing you can do. AMD, the reason that I'm a little bit more bearish on AMD, and we talked about why this faded, right? We talked about why this faded right here. I said, well, most likely what happened here was the algorithm saw that puts were really cheap at this high at 173.50. They saw that they were really cheap and the calls were getting we were getting a ton of call volume here because what happened? Retailers saw, oh, NVIDIA already made the big move, so something like AMD might make the move because it hasn't made it just yet. And what did they do? They took a bunch of calls. The algorithm kicks in and says, hey, puts are cheaper. Let's rug pull them. And that's exactly what happened. You can see it on the shorter time frames. We pointed that out in our weekly update video on Patreon that we put out during market hours so you can react to it. So this is something to pay attention to. Whenever AMD actually does roll over, though, it could see a little bit more weakness. Why? It's right by negative territory. Technically, negative trend down here. Technically, it's trying to go into a positive trend, but if that just rolls over, it's going to continue the negative trend, which means what? We're going to take out this low, and I think we're most likely heading down towards something like 133, 134 level down in this area, and then maybe we see some kind of bounce. We'll pay attention to that going forward. We're always switching, right? So if I see some kind of divergence on AMD, on Apple, on Tesla, on all these things, then I will say a bigger bounce is coming, and maybe this isn't the overall, major top, but you'd have to say with the XLU signal, if that signal proves itself, we have a top in the next 30 days. Meta, and we talked about this one on the shorter time frames. Actually, a great trade setup is setting up here, right? We have head and shoulders in here, and then if we do actually head a little bit higher, we talked about this week. If we head a little bit higher, you'll have a triple divergence on the 2-hour, which likes to turn around the daily. So if the daily is able to turn around here, I actually think if we don't hold up at 453.08, then we're going to take out these levels and probably head towards our 200, which is down towards 389. So sitting at 478, you could go down almost 100 points, almost 100 points on this, about 20%. Okay, on this overall move, you could go down if we're able to touch a little bit higher level and see that signal and lose 453.08. So this is not going to be a good thing for Meta going forward. And Meta was one as well that we pointed out on the weekly scale, just seeing some weakness come in. So if it did want to go create a divergence, I just want to be open to all scenarios, right? I even want to be open to all scenarios. If XLU is going to make some kind of divergence, what if Meta goes and makes it as well? Then I would know, okay, this is probably this has a high probability of being a major top for Meta. And we're going to go into volatility and show you in the dollar and show you exactly why these things could all happen and how all of these things are lining up at the same time. First off, the dollar on the weekly scale is what we're going to pay attention to here. And you're noticing what? Well, back here in October, remember, or December, this is where Tesla and Apple both topped out and said there's going to be weakness. So there was insider selling in this move. And even though we're at all-time highs, even though if NVIDIA is at all-time highs right now, right, above 1,000, what do we notice? The dollar is still higher from December. The dollar is still higher. And those people have not confirmed that they're getting into this move. Now, if this weekly turns over and goes positive, then we might get some kind of blow off top because the insiders will be getting involved. I don't think they're going to. I think that we need to more so pay attention to a daily scale here because I want to show you guys how tight this is and it's about to curl up, okay? So as of right now, we're seeing weakness going on into Friday, but next week, what could happen from here? Well, we're going to go over the shorter time frames and show you how we could create some kind of divergence. Remember, we marked off this box. We said this box is very important. We stop right at it. I said the next day, hey, yeah, this is most likely going to dip down into it, and then we'll see some explosive move. We dip down into it. We see some explosive move. So I've paid attention to this. I've done my research on the dollar a lot, and all you need to know here is if the dollar is higher while the stock market is higher, that means the insiders are selling and the retailers are holding the bag, and I do not want you to be one of those retail traders holding the bag. I want you to practice good habits. This tells you right here, the insiders are not in this move as much as you think. Even in NVIDIA, they are not in there. It is a lot of people selling their stock in other things and just saying, hey, I'm going to put it in NVIDIA because NVIDIA only goes up. That's the exact reaction that the algorithms and the insiders want you to have before they rug pull you. So the dollar is screaming higher. We're going to talk about this, but if this confirms another move higher, crossing on this MACD, where would it be? Positive territory, pretty much right after it crosses. And then if that's able to get above 106.493, well, we might have a bigger crash on our hands than even I potentially figured out. We might have a bigger crash, not in the form of a bear market. It might just happen very quickly. This is where I'm saying everything's lining up at once. So this Sunday, we're going to go into the shorter time frames on the volatility to show you why this could turn up right now. This could turn up this week. Okay, so we're paying attention to this. And then what would happen was if XLU is going to make that signal, we might see a spike in volatility and then see that fade and see some kind of double bottom, see some kind of divergence down here at the same time. When you see all of these signals at the same time, that usually all lines up to we're having a major top. So I would really pay attention because volatility, if this is able to go positive, the cool thing is the 50 in the 200, that's your crash signal. If the 50 is able to remain above the 200 for some time and we see that volatility could turn up and it's right next to each other, well, that could be the moment. You notice they kissed over here, and this is where we said, hey, there's going to be a short squeeze. Right when this bar happened, we said there's going to be a big short squeeze. And boom, we all were able to make some good money. Congratulations. But we said that short squeeze will be drawn out, and don't get tempted to short it until you're seeing all the signals at the same time. And I'm telling you, in the next 30 days, these signals are all forming at the same time. So we could see major volatility just right now. I would not be surprised by that. But if XLU is going to do what it did in the past and the market's going to do what it did in the past, we're going to see some kind of drop off, see that bounce back up, let more retailers hold the bag as the insiders rug pull you and volatility starts to skyrocket. And this is where that course is very, very beneficial. This is where I turned, I tested it with $500 and I was able to turn it into, I believe it was $18,000 to $20,000 in 2 months, just trading Apple back and forth using the strategy that I give you in that course. So this is not some get rich quick course. Remember, I say this all the time. The fastest way to make money in the market is the slow way. I am very honest with where I am at with my trading and how I do things very slowly. I do not try to make $1 million the next day. I bought AMC because I'm down for the movement, and if something happens there, cool. But I'm willing to lose that money. At this point, I am still making money the slow way because the slow way is the fastest way to make the most amount of money in the market and be successful. Okay, so the main takeaway here is XLU. We have to pay close attention to XLU because if this creates some kind of divergence, then that proves that has proven to be a very good crash signal. Okay, so we will be paying attention to this. This is one of the biggest run-ups in XLU, the utilities here, than any other time in the past. So if we create this signal, I'm expecting this to get very dramatic to the downside. And I don't want you holding the bag. I really don't. But I do want you to enjoy your weekend. So if you're able to take the course, if you don't have much going on, or you just want to dedicate some time to learning, I respect that 100%. It is very, very cool to see people who have taken the course even this week and just been emailing me right away like, I am loving this. And it keeps things simple. It's not something that's going to overcomplicate things, but it is going to tell you exactly what to look for, when to take a trade. And we're going to add this weekend to that course, how not to get screwed. And that's how we label it on our channel, on our live videos. We're like, this is how you don't get screwed. Once you take a trade, it's not over, right? It's not a sure thing to happen. So you want to pay attention to if the market is going to fake you out. And that's what we're going to put out this weekend. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to our live videos this week. I think it'll be a wild one. Maybe it's manipulated as it is a shorter trading week, and we will see some kind of divergence created in XLU by sometime in early June. Thanks, guys. Have a good day. I'll talk to you guys on Sunday. Peace.